The second question concerns the role of biofuel. The Energy Independence and Security Act, which is the legislation passed in December 2007 by the Congress that one of you will be joining, sets a mandatory renewable fuel standard requiring that fuel producers supply at least 36 billion gallons of biofuels by 2022, representing a nearly five-fold increase over current levels. The Act calls for 60% of this increase to come from advanced biofuels such as cellulosics. Concerns, however, have been raised about the energy balance of biofuels, how much goes in and how much comes out, the technological feasibility of supplying this level of biofuels, whether through conventional or cellulosic sources, and their environmental impact. What role should biofuels play in meeting our state and national energy needs?
Influence. When you have hundreds of lobbyists on one side and one or two on the other, it's difficult to have good science direct the debate. This is one of the examples. You obviously have agribusiness, an enormous lobby, with a stake in the outcome of this debate. As your next representative, the style of leadership that I provide and will do in Congress is to always separate out the science from the interests. Deal with the interests only to the extent you have to, whether they oppose you or are with you. But, for instance, I'm not taking any money from political action committees, and I'm really running on a platform of campaign finance reform, which I think is also critical to move our policy agenda forward in this area, because we're up against enormous amounts of money on the other side. Biofuels do have some role in meeting our energy needs. Certainly, there are some that don't improve our carbon footprint, including corn-based ethanol, and in fact have detrimental effects in terms of raising the price for food in the developing world, and also have probably, all things considered, a slightly negative carbon footprint. When we look at cellulosic and advanced biofuels, there is potential there, but again, we should wade carefully in these waters. We need to look at the full ramifications across land use and conservation, as well as the fully loaded carbon footprint of these technologies. We probably all agree we should spend more on research of alternative and renewable energy. I think the best place to spend that is largely solar and wind. Again, you have a very profitable agricultural business. In my opinion, they actually get subsidized too much. We should actually build into the ag bill, again, specifically energy considerations around the subsidization of agriculture in general. But we should not subsidize this particular solution. With that same money, it's better invested in solar and wind and truly renewable energies.
I'd like to rename this to the tepid Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007. And this is one indication of why I think it wasn't a great thing. The reliance and the dependence of this on corn-based ethanol is way out of line with, I think, what is reality. And I'm concerned about it for a variety of reasons. What Lakshman mentioned in particular is the net energy that is produced from this process and the amount of carbon that goes in to producing that unit of energy. It's all bad. Those fertilizers and chemicals end up leaching into our groundwater supply, into our drinking water, and they kill waterfowl and birds and other animals. There's huge effects. Here in Colorado, we're seeing a lot of land being broken up on the eastern plains that used to be under the Conservation Reserve Program. For the last 20 years, we've allowed it to return to its natural habitat. We've seen a huge increase in wildlife diversity that will go away as this demand goes up. We're also in the process of draining the Ogallala Aquifer, another important natural resource. So as we do more center pivot irrigation on the eastern plains, we're going to see less water available for all sorts of, what this points to me is that cellulosic ethanol is a great idea, but it's yet unproven. The people at NREL down in Golden believe that if there was actually significantly more resources to be invested in the research of this, they could actually determine whether or not there could be a breakthrough. We're not quite there yet, but I think it's possible. It's certainly difficult to say that we could generate 60% by that date. We ought to be looking at the kind of things that we can do right now around energy efficiency and renewable energy. The price of wind energy is getting right about equal to coal right now, so let's put more of our resources and energy into that as opposed to something that's more pie in the sky.
Biofuels really go to the heart of our transportation needs. I mean, we're not going to use wind and solar to move our vehicles. It's a problem that we need to solve, and having toured NREL, I do believe that, given the enough resources, that they will come up with a product that is not a food product, or maybe it's a byproduct of food. Maybe it's the what they call corn stovers, the leftover, the stalk, the cob, that can be converted into biofuels. Continental Airlines and Boeing and GE are about to run a flight, transcontinental flight on biofuels. I don't want to be in that plane, but somebody has to. And they're about to figure out whether they can replace the normal fuels with a biofuel. I think we have to, tread every path, go down the road less taken on a lot of this, because we don't know where the next breakthrough is. And that was the beauty of NREL. NREL before the Reagan administration was actually all about pure science. And it got into the business of being about applied science under the Reagan administration, going for a commercial application that was needed by somebody out there. The beauty of pure science is that they were allowed to go down roads that maybe were not as promising as others, but they gave us breakthroughs in areas that we just didn't know were about to happen. So, I don't think we as a country can afford to turn a blind eye to biofuels when we are driving vehicles. I myself drive a hybrid. You can't spit in the tank. I mean, you really do need to put something in there. We've got to figure out what is the less consumptive of energy to make as a fuel, and then how do we get there with something other than foreign oil? And how do we get there with something other than, resources that are not renewable? And it's incumbent upon us to figure it out. And that's what NREL's for, and I think with enough resources, they will figure it out.
Third question is by nuclear power. Should nuclear energy be on the table as part of a comprehensive global warming energy insecurity solution?
Nuclear is already a part of our solution. There's about 20% of our power that's produced in the United States is produced with nuclear energy, and that's probably not going to go down much in the near term, but those plants are aging. There are 4 or 5 or 6 plants that are looking at doing some sort of expansion, but I'm not a huge fan of nuclear, to be honest with you. There are a lot of problems with nuclear at the front end in terms of mining the uranium and processing it, and I think we have to look at these things through a carbon lens, both in the near term and the long term. And so we have to be really clear of what the overall output of carbon is in our atmosphere, and it's very, very carbon intensive. Economics of nuclear are also not great. It's a heavily subsidized industry. Certainly no nuclear power plant operator would operate that plant without the indemnity insurance that the federal government effectively gives them. I think we obviously still have issues related to disposal and the concern about terrorism, terrorist attacks on nuclear facilities, or as they're trying to dispose of the waste and be able to do that. So I'm still very skeptical of nuclear having a significantly bigger impact on our overall energy supply. It is going to continue to provide that 20% or so for the foreseeable future, but it's not something that I would look to be a central part of any kind of energy future.
There are some times when you have to act as a representative of your district and with special needs. And I do believe this district has special needs in the area of nuclear energy. We have a stranded power plant here, the St. Vrain power plant that the people of this district paid for and did not get the use of because it was an inadequate plant and never produced nuclear energy. So for somebody representing this district that also has in it Rocky Flats, that has really workers that went home with disease from beryllium and plutonium that are not being taken care of by the federal government, I mean, that certainly would make me a no vote on nuclear energy coming from this district, as well as looking at the issue of nuclear waste, which has not been solved, looking at transportation through this district of nuclear waste, which was a big issue a couple of years ago, people transporting waste through the district down I-25 to the WIPP facility in New Mexico. I know nuclear has helped France meet its Kyoto Protocol, the levels that they were allowed under the Kyoto Protocol, but this district is special. And it has a very bad history with nuclear energy, and I, for one, would have to be a no vote on that.
Yeah, I don't think that we should take nuclear energy off the table. Certainly I don't think we are ready to have a large-scale deployment of existing technologies, primarily because of the waste disposal issue representing a significant environmental challenge, as well as, again, when you're weighing the different sources of energy, certainly nuclear can have vast improvements in the carbon footprint of our energy production program. But you have to also weigh in the fact that the federal government does effectively subsidize it through an indemnification, which through commercial insurance would add an enormous external cost to that. So that type of accounting for it, which presumably is the very small risk of a very large disaster priced into what in fact it would cost for insurance, needs to be a part of any true cost-benefit analysis of nuclear energy. Certainly, this is an avenue that the federal government should pursue research in. There are many nuclear technologies in the horizon that might, in fact, play a meaningful role in meeting the energy needs of our future. So I am against any rollout on any large scale of nuclear power today, but I don't think it should be removed from the table simply because it has the word nuclear in it and we're scared of the word nuclear. And I think that we should continue to invest in research in this area. And if we can solve the issues around waste, solve the issues around safety, then this might in fact play a part in our energy future.